Testing, is this thing running? Gee, I haven't picked this up for a little while. G'day everyone, my name is Noah and welcome back to TJM Farming here on YouTube. Now, the start of this video this is recorded on the 30th of May, and as you can see, we've got the tractor and the combine behind us. The following footage you're about to see is split up through multiple videos over the past couple of weeks. We've had some technical difficulties on my end. Those who have been paying attention to the community posts on the YouTube channel will know that first, we've had some problems with the drivers updating on my laptop, and my laptop decided it wasn't going to work, and I got that fixed. And then next, the loader decided it was going to break down, and then we saw the reject flock. I did a bunch of footage for that, and then after all of that, when I sat down to try and do some editing, DaVinci Resolve, which is my editing software, decided that it was not going to play ball and constantly corrupt at 4%. Of course, when you see this video, I have got it up and running now, otherwise it wouldn't have ended up on YouTube, but at the time of recording this, we have got it up and running. I did try something experimental with the following footage you're about to see, which was recorded in 1440p, because I discovered that my GoPro could do that. And that was just a little experiment to see if it would work, and clearly, well, it's not really worth it if the editing software's not going to work. So I'm just going to use a mixture of 1080p and 1440p for the following videos, and we'll see how we get on. Exactly see because the mirror's half in the way, but they're all converging down there. They're definitely here. A lot of them are looking healthy, which, considering the drought-like condition, is pretty good. I think the main thing that we really need this time of year is rain, because as I stated in previous videos, South Australia is in drought, Victoria is in drought, and so is Western Australia. We were hoping for some rain in May, because May is usually our month of break to the season, but so far in the forecast, less than 1 to 0 mils. So right now a lot of people are dry seeding.
One there, cut it in half.
Yeah.
And then one up here. Put the hose down through that, and have the hose coming behind this.
So it's on top of the seed?
Yeah.
Alright.
He said in the sand it'll be alright on top of the seed. Red country, it needs to be under the seed.
Okay. Alright.
Thanks to small, and I reckon.
Yeah. I noticed that too. They look quite big on the camera in the actual footage, but in real life they're quite small. And having said that, these used to bolt onto the front of the John Deere, which is what I was trying to say in a couple of videos back. I think it's 2 videos ago at the time of recording this. What I forgot to do in that video was say that the reason why I was talking about the bolt holes on the front of the Johnny was because in the worst case scenario that we cannot separate the boiling pot part of this from the 2 tanks and just have these saddle tanks mounted onto the bar. Worst case scenario, if we can't get it done in time for seeding this year to make a frame on the actual combine itself, we are just going to bolt these onto the front of the tractor like we did in 2019.
I'd have to find that, put that on, and fill this tank with fertiliser as well.
Yeah. I almost forgot how these work because they've just been sitting here for that long. Wasn't it that you stick water in there, and one of the hoses takes exhaust from the tractor, puts it in the boiling pot, and it makes it
It steamed it, and then the scrubbed water gases cooled, came out of these, and then went down.
And it ran on a hose underneath the tractor and onto the frame of Hardy over there.
Yeah.
Old spray, and then those silver pipes along the boom there, that would spray almost like a liquidized carbon tractor exhaust. It would spray that out at the same time as any chemicals that would go out.
Get to it, you're just going to take this stuff away.
And then we'll just have to drive the tractor in side on, I suppose. But then, isn't that how we, I'm not sure if I still have that old video or not, but I think, didn't we have the chains wrapped around on the forks on Little Red, and it either had the tractor that side of the tanks, and it lifted it up on chains to try and line it up with the Johnny?
I just used the forklift.
Yeah. We had chains wrapped on the forks on the forklift and to lift it up.
That was to put it on the air seeder tank.
Either way, we had to, I think it was either had the tractor on that 90-degree angle there, or it was on that angle, and in order to try and mount it on the Johnny. I remember it was a pain in the arse to do it the first time round.
Yeah, well those, at 150 litres a hectare, those two tanks are only going to do 5 hectares.
So in other words, a lot of stopping and starting then.
Yeah.
That's going to make things fun. But we should also mention this too. That tow between tank that I mentioned a couple of videos ago, that forward engineering tank, we can't actually use that as an air cart anymore because something's buggered on it. I can't remember what. We actually brought that down here because we were thinking of dismembering the actual air cart part of that and just using the chassis and then putting a liquid tank on top of the chassis and then turning it into a set of liquid tanks, almost like a liquid cart. I'll give an example. It's similar to the liquid tank mod that custom modding made for Farming Simulator 22, how you could put that liquid tank in between the air cart and the tractor. That's a similar sort of thing that we were thinking of doing if those tanks there are not going to be enough, but we'll see. All stuff to think about. Right on, we're off to lunch. We'll see you next time I pick up the camera, which should hopefully be in a couple of hours. If not, we'll see you in a couple of days. Good afternoon and welcome to Wednesday. Now, I'm on my own on the farm today. Dad's off working and I've got the day off from rock picking, which means, well, it means that it's time to jump back in the loader and go feed sheep. But before we do that, first of all, at the time of recording this, my laptop shut the tin, so I'm not sure if it's actually going to be working when I get round to editing this, if I can edit this. Some updates. The last time you saw the combine, we had these single chute brackets right here starting to be fitted. Since then, we've changed it so that Dad's tack welded along here, along there, for these two brackets right here, and the idea is we're going to have a flexi tube. You can see an example right here. This flexi tube's going to come down from a liquid tower that's going to be mounted on the frame here. It's going to run down and be put directly behind that seed chute. Well, Dad and I put the 6 prototype chutes, as he called them, on the other night, and that's pretty much where the combine's at. Nothing's been done to it since because we've both been busy. Dad's been off working at Chilara and I've been off working the other end of the district. So yeah, that's where the combine is at the moment. Flip that isolator over. Hopefully this starts. Righto, we're away. I think I'll remember to do it. I think we'll just see you at the paddock. Right. Race track off now. Let's go find their sheep. Hopefully the ewes are being better parents than they were the other day. They were taking better care of their lambs this morning. Out that window there, we've got a mama and triplets. There's another mama, two mamas and babies under the tree. See if I can try and park the hay bales somewhere where they won't run away. Yep. I can't tell that. Oh, yep, that's a baby. Yeah, despite the dry conditions, the lambs can run. I'm not sure if you were able to see that out the window there, but yeah. Right, so the tripod basically broke a couple of weekends ago. So I use this top part as sort of like a mini tripod. Yeah, they're all hiding from me. They're hiding behind that hill there. Yeah, I think I'll unwrap this hay bale and then we'll just keep going. Time for a time skip. The loader. Last time you saw us in this video, we were in the loader taking hay bales out. Well, what happened was I put a bit too much trust in the machinery, especially this Chinese piece of shit. That's the brutal honest truth. That's what this is. The loader got completely sucked dry. I put too much trust in what the fuel gauge was saying. The fuel gauge was showing about quarter full. To put it lightly, I managed to take 2 bales out one trip, come back for a third, and I was coming back from feeding the racetrack mob, and then it started coughing and sputtering, and then it ended up where it is now. This is not the first time that the loader completely spluttered and then completely just stopped working and refused to go. The last time this happened was about in 2019, and when that happened, it was stuck in the header extension of the super shed, and it stayed there for 6 weeks. We ended up having to get Pat, the local mechanic, to come fix it for us.
Yeah, that's the trouble, this ball bearing here. Tiny little ball bearing inside there. And I didn't bring anything to poke it to.
But a bit of fencing wire work.
Oh, my. There's probably crap in there. See, there's a bigger ball there, and that could have...
This time the loader broke down, like Pat and Dad worked out that it was the ball bearing that had a bit of dust in it, and well, because that was about, well, it was 2019, so that was well over 6 years ago now. Yeah, this is the first time in a long time that the loader's been run completely dry by an absolute amateur, me. Lift pump there.
And there's the fuel coming out, eh?
Yeah.
So we're getting fuel to there. Yeah, run until it gets fair. supposed to just crack one of the injectors. I was putting it off there, but you're supposed to do the other side. Daniel said we got to make sure this is working. So can you go in and turn the key? I've got to make sure this solenoid, when you turn the key, that's moving.
Yeah. Turn it some more, or? Is it moving?
Well, it moved after you started turning it. Yeah, off, yeah. Go on again. Wait, wait. I'm gonna crack fluid.
Well, it sounds much more eager to start than it was.
Turn it again. Still not getting any fuel at the injector.
Shh. We've tried all we can. So far, nothing's coming out of the injectors. We put some Aero Start in it. Let's see if it will fire. Try it again.
Yeah.
Oh, what?
That was just the Aero Start. There we go.
Try it again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ah.
Hold on. At least we're getting some at the injector now.
Yeah. That's kind of what it was sounding like just before it stalled. Come on. I kid you not. Oh. Again?
Looking for the Aero Start, I wouldn't have to drop that out.
Righto, well,
Wasn't turning fast enough.
it wasn't Start, you bastard, that saved the day. It was Aero Start. There you go, free promotion for Aero Start, I suppose. Let's bring it home. Right. Fuel gauge is full. The loader is topped up. I'm gonna go park it up, and then hopefully I'll try my absolute best not to let this happen again. Now, what were we actually going to do today that didn't concern the loader? Oh yes, that's right. Okay, so at the end of that clip, I decided that I was going to just transition into the shearing shed where we had the reject flock there. But editing in that timeline, I realized that, yeah, no. If I decided that I was going to snip the shearing of the reject flock with the dramas with the loader and taking hay bales out, that would put the video well over 3/4 of an hour. So I don't want you to be subjected to 3/4 of an hour worth of me rambling, so I'm just going to split it up over multiple videos. The next couple of clips are me basically working on the combine and talking about the meter rollers, the shaft restrainers, retainers, whatever you want to call them, and me putting them in. Bimby Sue's looking at me, she's going, "Come on, Noah, we gotta go to work. We gotta go to work. I want to go see the sheep." But you've been busy with that thing all day. Right, so you join us at around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the sun's going down, and, well, it's time for a combine update. Last time you saw us at the combine, we showed you the adjustment that we made for where the liquid hoses are going to go on the back of the seed chutes there. Well, that previous video where I discussed the combine, I said that the combine was in bits. And this is not just where the seed boots and the points are concerned. This also concerns the meter rollers. Now, the meter rollers themselves, you can see in the bin right there, this is actually the fertilizer bin, and this over here is the seed. The seed shaft restrainers, which are down there, you can see in there, in those little gaps there, they're like little cup things that clamp onto the rollers that help the seed and the fertilizer to run down into the tube housings that send the seed down to the tines, points and boots. It turns out, despite the fact that we are only going to be putting seed in, so really we'll only be using this compartment and that compartment as well. Despite the fact that we're going to be using liquid fertilizer, we still need to put the fertilizer shaft restrainers. We still need to put all those on because, as you'll see in a minute, the shaft brackets that hold on that are held together by the shaft restrainers, they are very important because if they are not held together properly, then they will come loose. And as anyone who has driven any piece of farm machinery across a bumpy paddock will tell you, when this kind of machinery is in the ground doing its work, it makes a lot of banging noises and a lot of vibrations. And when stuff vibrates, it often comes apart if it's not properly restrained. What I've been doing is using the rattle gun to undo the bolts, slot the thing up into place, and then use the rattle gun to line the bolt holes up and then just screw it in place again. I didn't bring the GoPro out for this because, well, I needed to make sure that I could successfully do this before actually bringing the camera out to show you. So far, 2 down, 26 left to go. And, well, at this rate, I think this is mostly a 2-person job. We'll see how we get on the weekend, shall we? Bindi Sue's sleeping. She's looking at me going, "Are you finished monologuing yet?" Oh, all right, I'll give you a ride, Bindi. Yeah, see, she's perking up now. Yeah, she's happy. Last time you saw the combine, I had just taught myself how to put what originally we called those fertilizer cup things. The actual correct term for those are the fertilizer shaft retainers or restrainers, whichever one. Someone can correct me in the comment section over that one, but since the last time you saw us, I only managed to put 2 on. That was basically me just figuring out how they worked. So first of all, what is a fertilizer shaft retainer restrainer thing? Well, every seeder that has some kind of airflow system of some kind, be it an air seeder like that one over there or a combine here, you need to get seed and fertilizer flowing from the bin into the pipes and down to the tines, the seed boots and the points. Traditional air seeder, you'd have your meter rollers, which are located in the bottom of the air cart, blown by the air fan. Well, the combine does not have that because it's driven by wheels. The combine instead has these. These are the fertilizer shaft retainer restrainer things. In the box here, you can see, well, you got all those extra bits along there. Those are the ones that I'm yet to add. And then, well, you can see this is what we call the meter roller. Those basically, there's one for the fertilizer and one for the seed. You can see these holes down here as well. Basically how it works is those shaft retainers basically bolt onto the combine with those holes there, and it helps to hold the shaft retainer cup down there in place which helps the seed and fertilizer flow down. Of course, because we're only putting seed in the actual bin of the combine, we don't exactly need to have the fertilizer shaft retainers. Well, actually we do, because these cups, like that one down here, you can see a hole there and a hole there. One of those holes is to fit these two. These slot in, and the other is for, well, basically the counterparts to this, but for the seed. The seed ones, they're already in place. It's just the fertilizer ones that we're going to put in to hold those cups in place to stop it falling to bits when the combine is in motion. Now, the first time that you saw me putting these together, there's the first one there and the second one there. Those two were using the original bolts. And I got back to work on this today. As you can see, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on so far that side. This one's 7, this one's 8, 9, 10. 10 out of 28, so I've got a long way left to go, but what I wanted to show you was the original bolts for these shaft retainers are old and the threads are basically rooted. Pull out the original one. They look like this. This is what the bolts that came with the shaft retainers look on the combine. You can see that it's pretty rusty, and the thread at the end, yeah, not in the best shape possible. So we decided that, well, if we're gonna have them fall out of the holes quite a bit trying to put these in, which has happened twice already this morning, we went into town and we got all these replacement bolts and washers. And then after that, the process has been take the bolt out for starters, and then we whack this in place. So this top part here is the part that you can see in the combine there, and then we use the hammer to belt the actual shaft retainer into place, having this bolt face those bolt holes there, and then afterwards we just use the rattle gun. Considering that I only started this on Wednesday with those two doing it by myself, and then those other 6 with the new bolts and stuff that we got into town, sure, some may argue that we wasted half the morning in town getting these parts, but it has considerably increased the productivity on getting this thing ready. Right, so far so good. As you can see, we got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13 in so far, and well, 13 out of 28. You can see the rest of these in there. Some of them have got screws. I've pulled a lot of them out because we worked out that the spare holes in amongst there for the bearings. So the general idea with this is most of these screws, some of them will be good, they'll be reused. Others are absolutely rooted and cannot be reused. So we're just going to put brand new 12mm bolts, and washers will go with the fertilizer shaft retainers, and the old bolts, any long ones that are still in decent condition, they'll go back in to hold on the bearings. Otherwise the rest, they'll just sit in the fertilizer box not being used, and we'll take them out when it comes time if we ever need to use the fertilizer compartment. This is my process of how to put it together. Step 1, you can see a bolt in here. We need to take this out like that. You can see the bolt, put that right there, and we'll put that back down there, and we'll put the new bolts and washers in all at once when the time comes. Some come out fairly easily. Just just like this one here, but the washers are absolutely no good. And the reason why I'm putting them back in the bin like this with the flap facing down is because this is the same sort of way that they're going to go back into the bin again. There we go. One. Second last one. Last one. Comes out. Nice and easy like that. And my hands are caked in fertilizer dust. Next step, you can see we've got 15 brand new bolts with washers all lined up in a row. The next step is to grab the fertiliser shaft restrainers one at a time and then just belt them in. Put that in there. That is the last one in. So we got them all in now. Only took me about an hour or so. Dad's got Little Red Tractor over there taking the second bag of pellets out to the self-feeder. I'm actually surprised how efficient this has been. And I do believe this packet, we've got about 2 spare bolts in there, plus all of these extras. Now, that last clip that you saw, that was actually 17 minutes long. And it was very finicky because, well, we'll just show you what I mean. So, as I mentioned in the video actually talking about the combine, this is a 28 run. And what I'm talking about when I'm talking about runs is the press wheels mark where the rows are gonna go. You got a tine lining up with each run, and there's supposed to be a hose running to each individual tine, point, boot, and boot retainer, helping it to keep upright. When I was putting the fertiliser shaft retainers on, I had to do a lot of physically climbing up onto the steps here to lean down and basically bolt the shaft retainers into place. We ended up getting about 28 bolts for this whole process. Of course, we still got a couple of bolt holes there that I still need to put in. Those are for the bearings that hold that shaft upright. Putting the fertiliser shaft retainers on was just step one. Step number 2 was actually getting the rubber chute part of the whole system just under there. I'm not sure if you can see it properly, but you can see those hoses and the metal parts where they line up. Those are the rubber funnels that hook up to the shaft retainers for the seed and the fertiliser. And if they're not lined up correctly, they are a right pain in the backside to get on. As you can quite clearly see, I am, well, not what you'd call little. These things were not designed for blokes like me to get underneath and bang these parts into place, but I managed. We got all of the rubber funnels into place, all except for the number 1 row right on the end here, and that's mostly because of this big tube here which runs from the fan assist. So where the hopper is concerned in terms of putting the combine together, this is 99% finished. The next really big thing that we need to do is finish putting all of those liquid hose brackets, weld them into place on the back of the seed chutes, and then putting all the points onto the combine here, because right now we've only got about 6 of them over there on the right hand side of the combine here. After that's all done, the next thing we need to do is, well, these cogs here. These power the shaft. The chains here are linked to the gearbox here, so you set your speed, so your range, your second range, and then your actual gears for your seed and fertilizer ratings. When the gearbox is activated, it activates these cogs. They spin as per the motion of these wheels, and they drive the meter rollers, which basically propels seed and fertilizer from the hopper down through the hoses to the tines. This next part seems straightforward enough. We've got the cogs on, we're about to put the chains on. What else do we need to do? Well, you see this little hole there and these holes right there. That is for the drop pin that's supposed to hold these in place, so that when the chains move and the cogs move, it drives the actual shaft. Without that there, and if you put the chains on, the cogs are just going to spin and the meter rollers aren't going to do anything whatsoever. Thinking back to that video of me talking about the combine and how it was in bits, well, the pins that are supposed to go in here, we think are roughly around 4 by 50mm pins, drop pins that act like a shear pin. They're supposed to go in there, and if they don't, then the cogs are just going to spin. No seed's going to come out. So when we're in the paddock actually going up and back with this, thinking that we're putting 7 hectares of oats in the ground, if we actually go behind and check the seed depth after the thing's lowered into the ground, we are not going to be finding any seed whatsoever, because none of the seed will have gone through the meter rollers and down into the tubes. Sounds wildly exaggerated, but no, yeah, one little part, 2 little parts is all we really need to slot through those holes to make this work. And well, I've tried ringing up Agri Parts down in Welshpool to see if they have any. They don't, although they did kindly send me through the manual for this thing, which will be quite handy in the future. But yeah, and we did check with the parts place in Mora. They don't have it, so Dad's currently going around to all the tractor dealerships seeing if they have spare parts for this on hand. That's just the mechanical side of things with the combine itself as is in its current form. Remember that we are going to put some liquid onto this, meaning that we're going to need to get some liquid towers. Now, where are we going to get some liquid towers? Let's jump in the Kubota and I'll go show you in about 2 seconds. Remember how I said that the gas seeder isn't going to get any use, and if we can't sell it, then we don't know what we're going to do with it? Well, this is the air seeder that was pulled by Big Blue. We used it in 2020 on Nelly Creek. We actually used the John Deere bar for this. The Gason got some use behind the Pat McMurray bar in 2021. 2022 we didn't put a crop in here, but the Gason did get some use with the Pat McMurray bar on the old neighbours up in Canna. In 2023 we did put 65 hectares of oats in. That didn't grow because the season wasn't great. Actually hoping to sell this entire unit and make some money to hopefully fund a liquid kit with a Chamberlain. But, well, nobody wants a bar like this at its age with the amount of hectares that it's done and the stuff that needs to be done with it. And, well, we did have a couple people come to look at the Gason, but they didn't end up being interested. So, what we're actually planning to do instead, we've got 3 liquid towers on here. These are all held on with hose clamps that run to all these points along here. Our thinking is we take the liquid towers off the left and right wings of the bar, then we'll simply uncouple the wings of the bar and scrap those and sell those for parts, and keep the middle section and have it work similar to simply just a liquid setup for injecting liquid fertilizer under the ground as like a 19 shank. It's pretty similar to how the anhydrous bars work in the United States. That's our thinking, because if we can take the wings off and just have this as a 19 shank, then hopefully the little Johnny should be able to pull it, because this would therefore, accounting for the weight of the liquid fertilizer in the tank and just the center section of the bar here, it should weigh slightly more than the combine, but still be enough to get through the sand country, at least until such a time as we can find a decently big tractor that's at a decent price that we can buy. The plan would therefore be, we take all of the liquid hoses out, pull them off the tower there, undo the bolts holding the tower in place, and then we take the towers and strap them to the combine. Easier said than done, because, well, the other night I decided to try and take some of the hose clamps off the number 1 tower over here. This one's the number 1, that one's the number 2, and the one over there is the number 3. The number 1 tower, I tried to undo the hose clamp on one of the hoses, only to realise that I distinctly remember 5 years ago putting the liquid hoses on this, like replacing them. And this was back during the lockdowns, and during the school holidays or on the weekend, I decided that I was going to come outside and help Dad put this thing together instead. Well, we used simply a bunch of elbow grease. That's how we managed to get these things on. It turns out this elbow grease is the strength of some Gorilla Glue. Basically, we're going to need a bunch of WD-40 to loosen those hose clamps off. Somehow pull all those hoses off. We're going to try and reuse as many good hoses off this as we can, and hopefully put the number 1 and the number 3 towers onto the combine over there, and then we're going to rig up some kind of liquid hose system and simply just bolt the tractor exhaust tanks onto the front of the Johnny so that we can have a liquid setup. Our rainfall count so far this year. Well, it comes as no surprise to anyone who's watched the videos so far this year that it's been bloody dry, and it's still pretty dry in terms of feed, even though we did get 3.5 mils Thursday and 4.5 mils that are tipped out of the rain gauge this morning. That's still only 8 mils, and to really get feed like this up and growing, you need around 50 mils to do that. And well, yeah, the weather forecast literally just told us, good luck, you're gonna need it. For this reason that, okay, the plan initially was to have 87 hectares of cropping in total. It's a small crop, minute crop, teeny tiny compared to what we used to grow up in Canna, but we're basically testing the waters, so to speak, to see how we'd go with putting the crop in. Because the break to the season, on the other side of the district, it may have come down really hard with rain on Wednesday and Thursday. It just did not have the same effect on the west side of the railway line. So yeah, Dad is not very keen on this season, and honestly, I can't blame him. And given the fact that by the time that we finished seeding on Chillara in 2023 and Dad brought the tractor over. This thing was up and going in the last 2 weeks of June. And we were still seeding on the 1st of July. I made a video on that. And we do not want to be planting in July again. Because if 2023 is anything to go by, it just did not rain enough for the crop to adequately grow. And of course, it's the 30th of May now. And, well, a lot of the farmers around here, some of them say that 10th of June is their cut-off date. Others say you can go right up until the 20th. We want to aim for the 10th of June to at the very least get the oats in the ground, if we can. No guarantees about the wheat though. And because, well, Dad has basically said that he just wants to get the oats in the ground, at the very least. He doesn't like how the rainfall's going for this season, so if we try to put the wheat in the ground over in Clark Road, there's no guarantee that it will grow, and we do not want another failed crop this year. So worst case scenario, if we just cannot get the oats and the wheat in the ground in time with enough adequate rainfall, we're just going to put that 6 or 7 tons of wheat in the silo and store it away for next year. Brief shower arriving now. Then, when we're done, put that on.
And then it wouldn't go.
Oh, now it goes.
Yeah, because I've got to...
Yeah.
Watch this. Take this one off.
I brought the GoPro out, that's why.
Not charging without the other... Oh, shit. We'll leave it like this overnight.
Just to make sure she starts in the morning. For some context, it's the evening now. Shortly after lunchtime, I tried to start the Kubota. The Kubota, for the first time in ever, decided that she was going to make the battery go flat. This was probably... So we got the battery charger on it at the moment, and well, as you've seen there, it looks to have revived her, but just to be safe, we're going to put the battery on charge overnight. The other news, for the first time ever, on this farm anyway, the combine is, well, on initial inspection, viewers may say, oh, the combine's ready. No, it is not. Well, Dad finished welding all the bracket things onto the seed boots for the liquid kit, and so Dad and I, we went and put all the points, all of the bottom brackets and all of the seed chutes on the combine this afternoon. That was a very time consuming job. It wouldn't have been making very entertaining video for you guys, hence the reason why I left the GoPro in the shed. But the combine is almost halfway through. Next step is to somehow get the liquid kit running on it and level it out, because we worked out that the back tines are lower than the front. So we'll see you tomorrow.